they all answered, they yelled, "Crucify him." And here's what Pilate, this Roman authority, says. Why? What crime has he committed? But all they did was shout the louder, "Crucify him." So this crowd, this same crowd that was meeting Jesus with palm branches, is now yelling, "Crucify him." And here's what's at the heart of where Pilate finds himself stuck. There are very few things that Roman authorities feared because they had the might and the power of the military. But maybe the biggest thing that they feared was lack of control of the rabble, if you will, the common people. And it wasn't because they couldn't have called up the military to squash any kind of uprising, because they could have. It's that for a leader like Pilate, to have the people that were above him in the chain of command see that he was not able to handle with authority the people that he had been given responsibility over would have been a poor reflection on him. And so he is moved and motivated by these movements of man, if you will, right? These desires of the people over what he knows is right. And you can see where we'll find some application for that in just a few minutes. Verse 24, when Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, remember, just explain that to you, he took water and he washed his hands in front of the crowd. He had a bowl there probably brought to him and a towel, washed his hands. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." So, not my problem. All the people answered, "Let this blood be on us and on our children." Dangerous language. Then he released Barabbas to them. But he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. I want to explain to you, I believe Pilate tried everything he could to get out from under this, to honestly cast off the responsibility of it. I believe he was even doing that till the very end by having Jesus flogged. Why do I think that? Well, because I think the flogging, the beating, was his effort at them seeing our Lord be beaten to within an inch of his life, that then the people would see, okay, enough has been done because this is terrible, terrible punishment. It was oftentimes, y'all, that somebody that was flogged would die just from the flogging. You know, I won't go into all the details. I know some people tend to really dig into this, and I don't find it very effective. But I'll just tell you, it's a horrible beating that our Lord took. And so by having him flogged, he thinks possibly, okay, now they'll let this sort of bloodlust go and give up on this idea of crucifying him. But you know that's not what happens. Look, I want to spend the last little bit of time that we have together just walking through the application of what we've read about. Because what we really see here is 2 men, 2 bowls, 2 towels. And you're like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't see that in the text. Well, I'm going to explain it. But really, that's what's at the heart of today's message. It is a way of approaching the world, the way of approaching responsibility. And most importantly, like I've told you from the very beginning of this message, approaching the question, what will I do with Jesus? What should I do with this Jesus, Pilate was asking. What is truth? Pilate asked, and it was standing right before him. The answer to what he actually needed was right in front of him, but he couldn't see it. And so much of the world around us is in the same place. And you and I as believers, even those of you and I that have professed Christ, we still struggle sometimes with the applications of our faith. The day in and day out, how am I living out what I profess? So the personal and the pressing question is the first thing this morning. What shall I do with Jesus? That was what Pilate asked. You can't avoid that question. A lot of people try to, but ultimately everybody will have to answer that question at some point in their life, even if it is at the very end. And yes, even ignoring Jesus is a decision. It is choosing to not choose him. Luke 11:23 says, "Whoever is not with me is against me." These choices have eternal consequences and should be taken with the highest sincerity and severity. It's a personal, it's a pressing question every one of us needs to deal with. When we talk about, I told you earlier, it's a story of two men, two bowls, two towels. Pilate's bowl here is serving himself. It's about making sure that he doesn't do anything that's going to end up affecting him. Again, not my circus, not my monkeys. I don't want the responsibility. Hand this off to somebody else. That's what he's saying.